All right. I think we're live. And as soon as we go live, the little dog starts barking down there. That's just the way it goes. We had a great night tonight, and I can't wait to tell you all about what we did. It was very, very cool. So real quick, tell me where you're from. I like going back and watching and to see where everybody comes in from. We got people from all over the world watching these lives, and that is really awesome. So there's somebody from Virginia Beach. Oh, Virginia Beach, watching CBN. How about that? New Mexico, London, California, Maryland. Unbelievable. Look at that. Incredible. Kansas. Look at that, folks. People from all over the place. That's so cool. Okay, so give you a quick update on what's going on here in the war. After I tell you that, then I'll tell you what we did tonight. That was so much fun. You need to go over and look at my YouTube channel over on the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton right here on YouTube, because today I got a chance to interview Doron Kedar, who is a Master Sergeant with the Reserve Special Forces unit that is heavily engaged in Gaza, and they are taking it to the enemy big time, big time. And he had just come out of the field. He's still in the field. He's just out of Gaza, at a military base. They're getting ready to go in on another mission. And he told me he had time to do a quick YouTube live. So we did a YouTube live there. And it was an absolutely amazing interview, even though the connection was super bad. Obviously, they're kind of right on the bleeding edge of cellular connection and stuff. But you need to go watch that video with Doron Kedar, especially if you have found yourself subjected to the predations of guys like Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor, who have been saying that Israel is losing badly in Gaza. They're getting their heads handed to them. They are losing hundreds of tanks and thousands of troops and falling apart. I asked Doron Kedar that question, and you should hear his answer. He went off, and he hadn't heard about that. He didn't know that there were well-known commentators in the United States making the claim that the IDF was losing in Gaza. And even after we got off the live, he was like texting me videos from Gaza. Oh yeah, does this look like we're losing? Does this look like we're losing? You know, sending me all this stuff. And most of it I probably can't broadcast, but some of it I was able to put up over on my webpage. So if you go to chuckholton.com, that'll take you to my locals page, and you can see some of the video that he was sending me where they're capturing literally hundreds of Hamas terrorists, and they have them all sitting in the middle of the street, lined up 5 by 5. Hundreds of them that they've captured. And you know what? They're treating them humanely, which is better than you could say for any IDF soldier that was unfortunate enough to fall into the hands of Hamas. But they're treating them humanely. They've got them stripped down to their underwear. They're sitting in the middle of the street, and they're not beating them. They're not killing them. They are taking care of them and moving them off in accordance with the Geneva Convention to a safe area. And he sent me a picture of them once they got to the safe area, and they carved out a gigantic kind of camp outside of Gaza that is just dirt. They've just carved it out with bulldozers and stuff. There's nothing in there, surrounding it with concertina wire and putting them in there, and they're feeding them and giving them shelter and clothing and everything they need. He was pretty miffed that people would believe that the IDF is not winning already. It turns out that the strategy of filling the tunnels with seawater is actually working pretty well, because those guys can't hide down there anymore. And they're coming out in droves. and surrendering. So that is a very, very good sign. And it's just like I said, during the ceasefire, I went down right before it ended and was driving around Gaza, around the border with Gaza, and was seeing a lot of IDF armor coming out of Gaza. You could tell it was coming out of Gaza. It was covered with mud. It was all dirty and stuff that was going back in. I didn't see any of that stuff that was destroyed. And normally, like in Ukraine, if you get close to front lines, you'll see destroyed armor being carted off to get repaired. I didn't see any of it that was destroyed. I saw one that had a fender ripped off of one of the tanks, but that was it. And so I was saying that based on what I was seeing on the ground, there's no way that what those guys were claiming that the IDF was losing had any merit. Well, Doron has been riding on those tanks and been in Gaza for 2 months now, conducting dozens and dozens of missions, and he's like, you want to talk about losing? Let's talk about losing. Started sending me just dozens of photographs and videos and stuff, and it certainly does not look like the IDF is losing. And you'll notice if you look at the video that the Hamas terrorists put out. They put out video of them almost every day, and they're trying to put out propaganda, and they are showing where they are like hitting, shooting a RPG at a tank, and you see a big explosion at the tank, and then the video cuts off. They don't show the aftermath of that, and what you probably wouldn't know, and they are counting on the fact that you wouldn't know it, is that an RPG really can't take out a tank unless it's just a super lucky shot, because those handheld rocket launchers, tanks are specifically made to defeat that. And so the tank's just going to keep rolling. There's going to be a giant explosion. The guys inside are going to be like, wow, we just got hit with an RPG. But most likely they're going to just keep on rolling. And you never see the battle damage after those videos are shown. And so that's one clue. If some of them didn't show battle damage, but some of them did, or a lot of them did, then you would say, well, that one particular video cut off, but we've seen all this battle damage, so obviously they are getting destroyed. But I have never yet seen, except for at the very beginning on October 7th, there was a tank that was surprised, had his hatch open, they dropped a grenade or a drone, dropped a mortar round or something down into the hatch and killed the guys inside. And there was video of and it was right near the fence, the border fence, so the Gazans got to it really quick, and Hamas was pulling them out of the tank, pulling the dead bodies out, and jumping up and down, dancing on the tank like, yeah, we destroyed a tank. Well, they didn't actually destroy the tank, they just killed the guys inside it. And that's a tank that is salvageable for sure. So Doron says he doesn't see any armor that has been destroyed. They've had maybe a few trucks destroyed, or light infantry vehicles or something like that. Maybe they've had something that fell in a hole or tipped over, or along those lines. But that is sort of normal for this kind of combat, urban combat. Especially, you got all these tunnels all over the place. Those tanks are super heavy. The Merkava tank is one of the heaviest tanks on the planet, and so if it drives over a big tunnel, it could easily cave that thing in, and then the tank goes, and just is stuck. And they actually have special armored tank retrievers, like a giant armor. It looks like a tank, but it's got a big A-frame thing on it, and it's made for pulling tanks out of holes. And so they bring one of those up and they hook it up and they pull the thing out of the hole. Hey, thank you very much for the contribution. We sure appreciate that. If you'd like to contribute to CBN, a good way to do it is go to cbn.com and contribute over there, become a member. You can support our work, or you can give here on YouTube, that's fine. We're grateful for it all. We do the best we can with it all. Now, I've got more to get to about the war, but I want to stop and tell you about what we did today right across here at this hotel. So you've heard me talk about the fact that there are a bunch of kids in this hotel that are internally displaced from the north and the south. Most of them in this hotel happen to come from Kiryat Shimona, which is up in the north. But there are some from Sderot down in the south. And there are about 100 kids in total under 18. There are 47 children that are 12 and under. Now, we went over there and talked to the lady that's kind of in charge of the refugees and asked her, talked to her about like, well, we want to get some gifts for the kids for Hanukkah or Hanukkah. I've been reminded a couple times tonight that I will be laughed at if I call it Hanukkah. It's Hanukkah, like at the back of the throat. So we wanted to get them some gifts, and so we went and talked to the lady over there, and she said, well, probably 12 and under is best. The older kids, they don't do toys, obviously, and once they, in this culture, they hit 13, they have their bar mitzvah, their bat mitzvah, then they're considered an adult, and they want to be treated like an adult. So we started out with just treats, but we ended up with like a backpack full of goodies for all 47 kids under 12 over there, 12 and under. And tonight was their celebration of Hanukkah, and I had never been to one of those before. They invited us, and we went and attended and watched, and it was fascinating. They had a Jewish rabbi come in to light the Hanukkah candle, the menorah. I called it a menorah. Somebody corrected me on that and said, well, a menorah is just any candelabra. This has a special name, like a Hanukkah something. Anyway, the menorah. I'm going to call it a menorah. That's what I've known it as my whole life. So he lit the first, actually 2 candles on the menorah. And before that, they did a bunch of prayers. They did some songs. They did some, back and forth kind of, collaborative, stuff. And then he lit the candles, and then they danced, and they sang, and they clapped, and they had jelly donuts, lots and lots of donuts. And they went over and prayed some more. They had another table that was just like a whole bunch of those menorah, little ones, whole bunch of those candle things with like all different kinds. And I don't know if that was because like everybody brought their own and stuck it over there, like each family had their own and they lit them, or if it was like, that's probably what it was, is that each family, there were enough there that there was probably one for each family to take back up to their room and have there, because some of them were really tiny, some of them were bigger, but they were all different kinds. So that was really cool. And then they got all the kids together, and the moms came and everything, and then the ladies, my wife helped, but we just kind of stood back a little bit and let the ladies go for it because they knew what they were doing. And they knew like who, like, hey, you already got one, or hey, you're too old, or something like that. And they made sure everybody got the right gift, the right backpack. They loved it. Everybody was so happy. The kids were jumping for joy. They were so happy. They were all digging through their backpacks, and they're starting a horse trade over trading stuff. And the older kids were, and the younger kids were just like this and having a great time. The parents were hugging my wife, and some of them were in tears, and just said that this really made a difference for our holiday here. And thank you so much for those of you who donated to help them. That wasn't even my idea. They started over on my YouTube channel, The Hot Zone, and people, oh look, I hate that. You go like that, and now it pops up. There's a way to stop that, I think, but I don't know if I can do that right now. What a pain. Yeah, reactions, you gotta turn that off. It keeps turning it back on. That's really, yeah, really professional when I wave my arms and like balloons go by or something. Oh, what do we got going here? 1, 2, oh, it's government. Somebody from the government. You know, the U.S. Embassy is right near us, and Netanyahu's house is right around the corner over here. So every once in a while you'll have a big, yeah, that's what it is. Can you see down there? Well, let me get out of the way. You see all the sirens. Probably some important person going to a meeting. This is kind of like living in downtown DC, you know, where you're going to have those convoys all the time. That's pretty cool. But so anyway, over on my podcast, people had on their own sort of decided that they wanted to do something for these kids. That wasn't even my idea. And so we said, okay, whatever money we collect to do that, we'll go buy the kids some treats. And they sent so much money that we practically had to buy everybody motorcycles. And so we were like, okay, stop sending money. And so we went shopping with it, but people kept sending money a little bit more after that. And so last night I was talking about these girls in Colombia that we have been supporting for years, and they are in a bad way right now, have some trouble. You can go watch my podcast and learn about that. But so since we had extra money left over, we just used that money to help those girls in Cartagena. And I'm sorry, I hope you don't mind if that was you that donated late. Your money went to help the girls in Cartagena have a better Christmas, and actually because they will have food to eat. They're not going to starve to death, so that's a plus. It's always a plus not to starve to death over Christmas. So thank you very much for all of your generosity. You know, I read a book many years ago called Who Really Cares? And it was written by a Stanford professor, I think, of statistics, who actually set out to prove that liberals were the most generous people in America. And he kept finding just the opposite, and so he thought, well, I must have done that wrong, and he'd try it again and come at it from a different way, and he kept trying to prove his you know, theory, and the answers just kept coming back that he was wrong. That liberals are not the most generous people group in America. Actually, American Christian conservatives are the most charitable people group, not just in America, but on the planet by an order of magnitude. I mean, not by a little bit. And although that level of giving has been declining in recent years as people have had a harder time just making ends meet, American Christian conservatives are still the most generous people group on the planet, bar none. And they donate more money, they donate more blood, they donate more of their time volunteering than anybody else on the planet. And so you can go read that book if you don't believe me and see his methodology for how he figured all that out. But this guy actually set out to prove the opposite, and he just couldn't, he couldn't make the numbers work. And so he said, I actually ended up becoming a conservative Christian because of this study that I did. So you all are so generous that you just overwhelm us with donations when you find a need. If you see a need, you just overwhelm it, and good on you. You know the joy that comes with being generous and giving of yourself to help the less fortunate. And if you don't know that joy, you should try it sometime, because it's a whole lot of fun. And the people over there at the Hotel Cassia say thank you. They were very, very kind of blown away, like, wait, why are you doing this? And I said, because we're Christians and we love you. And they're like, yes, but what, why? You know, it was very hard for them to quite understand, wrap their head around why a journalist with it. I'm like, well, it's a long story. I got this YouTube channel, and so we just love you and we're Christians. And they're like, thank you. You know, they were just a little thrown off by that, perhaps, but I understand. I mean, we just came out of the blue and literally dropped, you know, in on them from above, kind of. And So it was pretty cool. All right, let's move on to the northern border. I wanted to touch base on that because that's where I think the real news is going to be made here in the short term. The defense minister in Gallant said today, the IDF defense minister said, or I'm sorry, Israeli defense minister, he's not the IDF necessarily, Yoav Gallant, said to Lebanon, hey, if we're going to give you guys a chance to move Hezbollah out of the southern part of Lebanon beyond the river that bisects Lebanon it's about 10 to 18 kilometers from the border with Israel. So we want all of the Hezbollah fighters and equipment, everything, out of the southern part of Israel to the north of that river. Otherwise, we're going to come in and make you do it. We're going to come in and clean out Hezbollah. Now, there's a real precedent to this because the last time they had a war in Lebanon between the IDF and Hezbollah, part of the peace deal that they ended up coming up with was exactly that Hezbollah would have to stay north of that river and leave Israel alone. Well, they have not abided by the terms of that deal. And they have flooded the south. There's even a UN peacekeeping force in that area that is supposed to be keeping an eye on things and keeping Hezbollah out of the area and keeping the peace. They're not doing it. They've never done it. They're the most worthless of all the worthless UN organizations. That particular one is especially worthless. And so Hezbollah is all over in the south of Lebanon. And so Israel has now given them word, fair warning, that if you don't move north of that river and stop shooting rockets at us, we are coming into Lebanon. And we will use whatever means necessary to clean out Hezbollah and ensure, because we've got 80,000 people, they say, staying in hotels like this one, that will not go back to their homes as long as Hezbollah is there, because we can't expect them to. They're going to always have to sleep with one eye open, fearing that Hezbollah is going to come flooding across that border and murder them in their sleep. So we're just done with this. We're not playing this game anymore. You are moving your guys north of that river, or we are coming in and doing it for you. That's all there is to it. Now that is a significant threat of escalation, if not outright escalation. I say if not outright escalation because there is a lot of video coming out today of Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon, and they're not little strikes. They are massive, massive strikes in Lebanon. I'm going to be putting video of that up on my website. You can go take a look at that. I did put up video of those Hamas troops who surrendered today. The video of those Hamas troops that are surrendering will blow your mind. They're sitting in the middle of the street. There's hundreds of them. Well, probably 100 at least. And they are stripped to their underwear, sitting in the middle of the street with their hands behind their backs. And Israel is processing them and then sending them off to a camp. Now imagine what would happen if the IDF got captured by Hamas. They wouldn't be treated that well, that's for sure. So the IDF is certainly winning. They have said now, the defense minister went down to Gaza today to take a look at everything, and he said, we can now go anywhere we want in Gaza. Any place we decide to go, north or south, we can get there with, and we will. We will continue to clean out Hamas until there is nobody left to fight. And so they are making good progress. Doron Kedar, if you go to my Hot Zone channel, I interviewed Doron Kedar live today from Gaza, and he made it very clear. We have a timeline of how long this is going to take and when it's going to be over. We're obviously not sharing that timeline, but there is a timeline. And we have a methodical plan to clear out Hamas and to win this fight. So the cowards of Hamas are showing themselves to be cowards. They are hiding behind women and children, and they are intentionally trying to get us to kill women and children. We saw this in Somalia. The Somali fighters that the Rangers were going up against during the Black Hawk Down incident in 1991, they would make a woman walk in the street with her hijab on, walk down the middle of the street, and they would hide behind the woman and then try to fire between her legs under her thing, shoot at the U.S. soldiers from between her legs, knowing that the U.S. soldiers are not going to shoot at a woman. Cowards, absolute cowards. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your ideology is. That is cowardice. And I absolutely loathe and despise cowardice in any form, but especially in a form like that. The IDF is putting themselves between evil and their people. Hamas is putting their people between the IDF and them. So that shows you who's on the right side of this. I think that right there by itself, without any other context, would show you who is the righteous party in this fight. Okay. You guys despise cowardice too. Yeah, I see that. All right, so I'm going to answer some questions here. Yeah, they did delete my video yesterday. I was right in. No, they didn't delete it for misinformation. It just fell through the cracks. But they didn't. Normally, if they have a problem with one of your videos and they're going to take it down, they alert you, they warn you, they give you a chance to fix it. You know, different things like that. There was nothing. As soon as we hit end broadcast on our end yesterday, it just fell into the ether and disappeared, and we never saw it again. So it wasn't anything we said, I don't believe. I just think it was a glitch in the system, and we did go back and do another shorter live after that to replace it. But yeah, I was really upset about that. That bothered me. They have not eliminated Sinwar, follower of Christ. They have surrounded his house. And they are they are saying, well, we know he's not there, but he can't hide. He can only run for so long, and he's just going to die tired. So Grateful Living. Couldn't the IDF spend more time on finding rockets and munitions first, then go get Sinwar? No weapon has no power and no fear, which Hamas uses to control the region. They're doing both. Flooding the terror tunnels will have the effect of taking a lot of rockets and ammunition and explosives off the battlefield, because you get salt water, get those things immersed in salt water. They're not going to be any good. But it's also going to flush out the rats that are hiding underground and force them to the surface, and that's what's happening. All those, if you go watch that video on my website, all those Hamas fighters that surrendered today were in the north, and they were, from what I understand from Durand Kedar, they were hiding in the tunnels, and they came out and surrendered when the tunnels started getting full of water. So that's a very good thing. Now, one note of good news. I've been complaining for a long time about the fact that they wouldn't allow me to go and embed with IDF forces in Gaza. Apparently now they are starting to allow those, and they may call me as soon as tomorrow to go down and do an embed with IDF. So pray that that goes through. And thank you very much for praying that it would happen. So it looks like it may happen very, very soon. And I'm really looking forward to that. Trying to actually get in with Durand Kedar's unit, although that's a long shot because it's a special operations unit. But I would love to go out with those guys, man. Okay, White House press briefing yesterday said a future governance in Gaza has to be representative of the Palestinian people. Does that sound like another Palestinian Authority which aid terrorists with U.S. tax dollars? Lance, that is exactly what the press briefing said. That Muppet Karine Jean-Pierre, I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Sorry. She they are saying that, oh, there's Beeper guy. Here he comes. And he's going to be a while because he's got a long way to go. Yep, Mr. Beeper. I have a camera set up in a way that I can't show it to you, or I would show you him. Oh. Man, he's good. He missed that car by about 2 inches. This has become something of a running joke with our lives here, because every single night it seems like this guy decides to back up his van for 10 minutes in the parking lot down here, and he's literally the loudest backup noise I've ever heard in my life. I am 7 stories up, and it just drowns out everything. So yes, answering your question, Lance, the United States is insisting that whoever is going to govern Gaza after this has to be representative of the Palestinian people. I think it's going to be a long time before Israel is going to agree to that. And the United States has limited sway over Israel. They can't force Israel to do that. They could remove a lot of funding from Israel, but that's not going to be something that can be done unilaterally. It would have to go through, Congress and all that. And there's still a lot of support for Israel. So I don't think that we're going to be, putting sanctions on Israel or anything like that. I could be wrong, but I just think that the Israelis, and all the Israelis I'm talking to, in the military, out of the military, talked to a lawyer the other day, I'm talking to a lot of people, and they're saying, the Palestinians have lost the right to self-governance because we gave them that. We pulled everybody out of the Gaza Strip. We let them govern themselves, and they immediately set about turning the entirety of the Gaza Strip, not into an open-air prison, but into an open-air military base, which they then used to attack and murder 1,200 Jews. We are not going to live next to that anymore. And so for at least the time being, this is why you can't have nice things, Palestinians. This is why. And Israel is saying that there will be a presence, an Israeli presence in there for quite some time. So, is it true that U.S. have to agree on the moves IDF takes? No, the U.S. does not have to agree on the moves IDF takes. They obviously have a very close relationship, and the United States has a lot of sway because we give them a lot of money. But when it all comes down to it, the politics here are going to be more powerful than the money coming from the United States, I believe, because no politician here in Israel is going to forfeit his seat in the Knesset, forfeit his presidency, or forfeit his prime ministership solely to placate Joe Biden. That's just not going to happen. They are first and foremost beholden to the Israeli people, and they know that. Beep for life. That's good. They know that, and so they're gonna do what their people are clamoring for before they do what the United States is clamoring for. I think. Who's a YouTube commentator that doesn't have a clue what he's saying, but has become popular? I missed the first part of that, I guess. Yeah, there are 300 miles of tunnels, and they've blown up at least 500 tunnel entrances so far. And they have, they've now started to flood the tunnels, which, again, with 300 miles of tunnels, that could take a long time. How does the IDF take out top leaders in other countries? They assassinate them. They send teams of Mossad agents. They set up surveillance. They observe the target, find out his patterns, figure out where he's going to be at a certain time at a certain location, and they walk up behind him and shoot him in the head and then walk off. And they murder the guy. That's how they do it. They assassinate them. And they are going to do that to anybody that was involved in this, I promise you. Okay, Chuck is in Israel and sing for himself. Are we talking about Ritter here? Who are we talking about? Yeah, Ritter. Yeah, no, Ritter doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not been here. And he did the exact same thing in Ukraine. I was in Ukraine for 6 months last year, and I kept watching this junk on Tucker Carlson and elsewhere where he's interviewing Ritter and McGregor that were saying all kinds of things about what was happening in the war, making these bold predictions, and none of them came true. Everything they said was wrong, like really wrong. Like one time, Ritter, it was Ritter or McGregor, I forget, probably McGregor, because it was on Tucker Carlson's show. He was like, the Ukrainian forces are collapsing around Kherson. They are going to completely fall apart, and this is going to be over in the matter of weeks, et cetera, et cetera. Like 2 days later, the Ukrainian military retook Kherson and kicked out the Russians. And they're still fighting. They haven't collapsed. Things are, things are bad. But both of those guys were completely wrong on Ukraine, and they are completely wrong on this war too, probably because they have not bothered to come here and to see for themselves. It's amazing that they get so much play. Do you think this will go on for months? Hood, Saint, fishing, yes. This will go on for months or even years. This is not the kind of thing that's going to be over. They're already starting to deal with a little bit of insurgency in Gaza. When it turns to an insurgency, then you don't know who the enemy is until he's shooting at you because he's hiding in the civilian population. And that can easily become a stalemate. It can become just a war of attrition. So we saw it in Afghanistan, we saw it in Iraq, we've seen it in a lot of places. And so the Israelis know this is going to go on for months at the very least. Because, and here's the thing that's really frustrating. The United States is paying money, billions of dollars to Israel to help them with this fight. That's fine. They're paying billions of dollars to the Palestinian Authority to facilitate and encourage more attacks on Israelis. So the United States is paying for both sides of this war. And when it's all over, mark my words, the United States is going to help pay to rebuild Gaza. So all of this is coming from your tax dollars, essentially. So maybe that's just like kabuki theater or something, but it's very frustrating. Why Israelis did not make sure that the Hamas prisoners in Israel prison will not be able to fight again after the prisoner exchange. Joe, how would you recommend that they do that? Like cut off their arms or something? That, is not really a way to do that. And it's unfortunate because, the only way to make sure that they're not going to fight you again is either to kill them or to keep them in prison. If you don't do one of those two things, you're going to let them out and they're going to go back to fighting. Yahya Sinwar, the commander of Hamas, had been in prison and was released. He was also treated for a life-threatening medical condition while he was in custody of the Israelis. They cured him with Israeli medicine for free and released him, and this is how he thanks him, okay? Did you hear about the Gazan elderly lady who during a live interview said civilians were not receiving the aid that was coming in? They were going into the tunnels. She didn't care if Hamas shot her. I did hear about that. I've been saying that all along. It's a foregone conclusion that Hamas maintains enough control in Gaza to take whatever part of the aid that's coming in that they feel they need before they give anything to the citizens. We saw today video coming out of southern Gaza where they are raiding warehouses, and these warehouses belong to NGOs like the United Nations World Food Program. And they're full of food. And the UN is saying, wringing its hands and lighting its hair on fire and getting its undies in a wad over the fact that Israel is attacking down there, going, oh, the people don't have enough food. But they've got warehouses full of food in Gaza. I could understand if they said, we've given away everything. We have no food left to give the people, and the people are going to starve. But they're saying that the people have no food while they themselves have warehouses full of food in Gaza. Go figure. So it makes them lose a little bit of credibility, don't you think? And the Gazans know it. The Gazans are getting desperate, and they're raiding those warehouses now in southern Gaza. JN says, can we raise money for a silencer for Beeper Man? I have thought very hard about somebody should sneak down there and crawl under that van and snip those wires to that backup beeper. And he might wonder what happened. But you know what would happen then? One of these poor little kids would get run over, and it'd be my fault. So we're not going to do that. But what impact will the invocation of Article 99 have? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Somebody explain. Thank you, Crystal. Whoop, I lost you here. Anything to celebrate right now? Yeah, well, we're celebrating Hanukkah today, and we just went across the street to the hotel over there, and they had there's probably 300 people that are staying in that hotel that are IDPs, and they were having a great celebration, dancing around. I'm going to put that video up on my website, chuckholton.com. I already put a little bit of it up, but I'm going to put it all together in a little package so you can see what that looked like, and it was really cool. But I also, while I was over there, some lady came and grabbed me and said, you got to talk to this guy. I think it was her father-in-law, is a rabbi from the synagogue in Sderot, which is right on the Gazan border, and was one of the towns that was invaded by the Hamas fighters on October 7th. And so she took me over there to meet and talk to him, and he's telling me a story. He was in the synagogue on October 7th, which is right next to where the police station was, and he heard the shooting outside, like major shooting, so he went running outside, and he saw the police like hiding behind their cars shooting at the Hamas fighters, and the Hamas fighters were advancing down the street on him and shooting back, and the police were terribly outnumbered. And so he turned to run back into the synagogue, and one of the Hamas fighters shot him in the back, and it hit him right below the shoulder blade back here, went right through his chest, and came out right here. Okay, hit him right where his heart was, and came out right where his heart was. And when he eventually got to the hospital, and they did a CAT scan and everything, and found out that the bullet actually went around his heart and then came out. Did not touch his heart. There's a long story, and I'll let you go over and listen to his interview on my YouTube channel, or I'll probably put it up on the YouTube channel as well as on the locals page. But suffice it to say, it was a miracle. Without a doubt, it was a miracle. This guy got literally shot. It should have killed him immediately. He waited an hour bleeding out while the battle raged all around him. A suicide bomber ran into that police station across the street from his synagogue and blew himself up and flattened a 2-story building. The whole police station was just a pile of rubble. Killed a ton of people in there. And he listened to all that, watched it out the glass doors, or the doors of the synagogue, and was eventually driven to the hospital in his own car by one of his friends. 3 weeks later, he walked out of that hospital, and now you wouldn't believe anything had ever happened to him. He looks like he's ready to go play football. It's amazing. It's an absolute miracle. And we heard more stories like that when I went to Barzillai Hospital in Ashkelon, the same hospital that treated him, from the trauma surgeon that we interviewed. She said, we see this all the time. Like, people come in here with injuries that in the Bronx, where I worked in New York, would have been life-ending injuries. They would be dead. They would be rolling a cadaver in here. And they come in here with injuries like that, and we go back and we look at the scans, and it's like the bullets go out of their way to miss vital organs. It's unbelievable. We just see miracles every day here. It's crazy. So you can call that a coincidence if you want. But I happen to believe that we have a sovereign God who is powerful enough to do that if he so chooses. And he's also even more powerful than that. Sure, he can make the bullet go around your heart. He can make the bullet miss you. He could make the guy never fire the bullet if he wanted to. But God is powerful enough to give total free will to every human being on earth and let them do whatever is in their mind to do, and still turn it for your good and my good, for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. That is a powerful God. A powerful God that doesn't have to stop you from doing what you want to do. He can give you complete freedom, but he can still turn whatever happens to your good. That's power. He can take the worst tragedy you can imagine, and someday you will look back on that tragedy and say, thank you, God, for what happened. I've just say that because I've seen it happen so many times. I have so many friends who got their legs blown off in Afghanistan and Iraq. I have a friend who parachuted into Panama with me 100 years ago in 1989, and his chute, he landed on top of somebody else, his chute collapsed, and he fell and broke his back and became a paraplegic. When you talk to that guy today, and he'll say, I'm so grateful for what happened to me. Only God can do that. I'm sorry. Only God can do that. All right. So we're going to pray, and we're going to get out of here unless there's any other questions. I have a successful marriage because I got all this sexy going on. That's why. I can't keep her away from me. She just, she's listening. Is she listening? she's over there pretending not to listen. All right, so. Okay. Article 99 allows the UN Secretary to call on the UN to call for an immediate ceasefire to the Gaza war. Except, again, none of that really has any teeth, because the UN's not going to send peacekeeping troops into Israel. And Israel is going to do what they want at this point. When do you think Gazans betray Hamas publicly? I think they're already starting to. They're starting to get very angry, according to people I talk to that have been in there. They're starting to get very angry with Hamas for the suffering that they're being subjected to. And if it gets painful enough, it'll happen. Israel will win at the end. I believe that. Okay. Why do you read just the stupid remarks about your marriage? I'm just picking and choosing here because I'm not reading all the remarks. I don't know how many thousands of comments have we had. I can't read them all. They're scrolling by, and I look down here and see what I see. I'm just scrolling through here. Yeah. It's not coincidence. It's our sovereignly Heavenly Father. Yeah, okay. All right, well, we're going to pray, and we're going to get out of here. I really appreciate all of you who are faithfully watching. I'm having people stop me in the street all the time now. When I go out and go for a walk, people will come up and go, "You're that guy!" And I'm amazed at how many people here in Israel are watching. But I'm also getting lots of great comments from other people from around the world. And I try to read all the comments and respond to them. It's a time-consuming process, but if you will take the time to write to me, I will take the time to read what you write. You can reach me at hotzoneholton@gmail.com. And forgive me if my answer is a little terse. I'm not trying to be terse. It's just that if I got 100 emails to answer, I'm trying to get through them all. And so I'm going to skip the pleasantries and just try to answer you as quickly as I can. So thank you very much. Love you guys. We'll see you again tomorrow.